Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Today, we're going to review the new album from a band you all may know as Deerhunter. The album title, Monomania. Deerhunter is a band that we've actually had the privilege of reviewing a couple of years ago now.
Halcyon Digest.
Feels like yesterday that we reviewed that.
I know, but it was so long.
And
I think that was actually a 2010 album, wasn't it?
Later on in 2010, and then I think last year did Atlas Sound, Bradford Cox, the main guy behind Deerhunter. He's the lead guy, and Deerhunter's more the full band presentation of the the Bradford Cox brain. And then Atlas Sound is the more just Bradford Cox solo project. But you have to. It's kind of like Radiohead versus Tom York. You still are borrowing a lot of music and musicians,
definitely.
and a lot of the same ideas. So very, very similar sound between the two acts. Now, Parallax, which came out, did that come out in 2012?
I think it was 2011.
Yeah, so it's actually been a while for that one too. They were due, and now in 2013 we have Monomania. So the reason why it's important, I think, to bring up the previous two Bradford Cox releases that we've reviewed is because Monomania, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Deerhunter sound, these guys are, to me, one of the quintessential underground indie rock bands.
Yes, I totally agree.
They totally, it's all about guitars, kind of a very lo-fi sound. Bradford Cox has a very druggy vocal presentation, and it's just kind of where kind of dirty melody-based kind of psychedelic sound to it, and I really like it. To be straight up, everything I've heard from Deerhunter, I've always been attracted to the sound because it's so gritty, so authentic, and he does such a good job of just presenting it as an idea. Now, Tom, how does Monomania compare to the bulk of Deerhunter's work, and what was your take on it?
To me, it really harkens back to a lot of their earlier stuff, especially coming off of 2010's Halcyon Digest, where I feel like that was, while it was still had the elements of classic Deerhunter, people are going to wonder what the hell you're drinking there. I gotta say, that's the
Green Machine.
It's Ecto Cooler or something. I wish that stuff was still around. Sorry. Okay, high C tangent. We're getting back to Deerhunter.
All right.
Sorry about that. So, Halcyon Digest was a little bit of a cleaner album. This, it's like they just listened back to that album and thought, this is good, but we need to dirty it up again.
Yeah.
And they really did. I think that this sounds, like I said, a little bit more like their older stuff, but also with the songwriting chops of their newer stuff. I think it's a good kind of blend. So I would imagine that this one would be quite the fan pleaser, and I've heard good things about it from fans. So.
And I actually drilled in, once I realized that, okay, this is a lot like some of the earlier stuff I've heard from Deerhunter, I actually drilled in, went back and listened to Halcyon Digest, and then drilled into this album, and track by track went through what album does this sound like, and I saw similarities to like Cryptograms and then Microcastle, and even I even felt like Night Bike is track 11. Is that how you say that? That one even was very specific back to the Cryptograms area. So I mean, it was really cool to kind of hear how they were incorporating all these different takes from their discography into this new album and this new presentation. I even saw like The Missing, even Blue Agent to some extent, were kind of in Sleepwalking, were all kind of Halcyon Digest era. Now, not the dreamy songs like Earthquake or Helicopter, but some of the other tracks on that album, and even Parallax. The Atlas Sound record that came out in 2011. You see a lot of the tracks coming from that era too. So it's this really crazy blend of Deerhunter sounds. Yeah, it all sounds pretty unified.
Yeah, it really does. The first two tracks especially are a couple of the noisiest on the record, and so that at first kind of put me off. It was not what I was expecting. But then once you get the big picture of the album, and like you said, all those different sounds are incorporated in there, where you have songs like The Missing and even Sleepwalking and Back to the Middle that are a little more of their classic kind of indie pop rather than the really gritty, noisy stuff. It all comes together to be a very solid album. Now, I gotta say, I think I like Halcyon Digest a little bit better. I really like that adventurous side of them. That's just me, but this was definitely solid. There were some songs I liked better than others, a few that didn't really jump out at me. One of them actually being the title track.
I completely agree. That track to me just seemed messy, unfocused. It seemed hastily thrown together. I love the volume change they do and the dynamics that they do there. I thought that was really cool, but to me it was just kind of a
True.
just big sore spot.
Yeah, and especially being, I think, the longest track on the album, and between two songs that are a little bit more of that kind of poppier sound I was talking about, I didn't feel like it quite worked. So there are a couple spots like that brought it down a little bit. But overall, I still really liked this album. The more I listened to it, the more I liked it. It took me a while to warm up to, but those grower albums are the ones I end up liking.
I totally agree. I had the same reaction. At first, I really struggled with this album. When I first put this on, it did not sound like a quality Deerhunter record. I really felt like Deerhunter might have kind of let the ball drop a little bit. And then as I started digging through that lo-fi production, I started realizing, okay, these songs are actually pretty brilliantly composed. Bradford Cox, as a songwriter, knows how to write catchy guitar parts. And stringing those guitar parts together, the chord progressions that you hear, I just think that the songwriting is still top notch for Bradford Cox, and the standard that he's set for all of his music and all of his projects. Now, the one complaint I want to register about Bradford Cox on this album is that I feel like the vocal presentation, track to track, is way too similar. I feel like a lot of the tracks are using Bradford Cox vocals just sound very similar, and that's one thing on Halcyon Digest. He did such a good job of separating the vocals and really making different vocal presentations, keeping the vocals interesting at all times. I mean, you and I both know that I'm more vocally based. I mean, that's my entry point, so of course I'm gonna notice that. Like, I drill straight into it, and the first thing that I hear is just these songs sound repetitive, but the only thing that's repetitive about it is Bradford Cox reusing the same vocal part kind of in a very similar manner over and over again.
Well, and even on the instrumental side of things, I think that since the whole album is almost produced too similarly, it doesn't really highlight some of the songwriting differences that they're going for. I mean, we pointed out where the differences in the songwriting is, and that production in a way kind of helps unify it, but there are some spots where I'm listening and I'm thinking, I really could use more drums here. They're getting muddled up by focusing too much on that guitar noise, which, of course, you want the guitar noise, but when it's covering up some other positive aspects of the songwriting, then it's kind of working against you and a little bit backfiring. Now, that's a very nitpicky complaint, so it didn't really bring me down too much, but I still thought it was worth mentioning.
I mean, one of the things that we have to do, considering the amount of music that you and I listen to, Tom, is we have to analyze the craft of the songwriting, the craft of the songwriters in the process as well. In looking at it, there has to be some optimization point where two lines meet. Where is this sound adding value to the overall sound of the album, to the overall value to the track? It has to be there.
Is it complementing the songwriting?
Yeah. So I think that it's we have to dig into that. Yeah. So and there's definitely points to be made on Deerhunter. Now, I know where I'm going with this one as a score. I'm not sure where you're going. We haven't really talked about it.
You go first then.
Shit. I'm going to go 77 on this album.
77? I was going to go 76. So I guess I'm the goose on that one.
You're the goose. It's going to be a 77 from Velocities in Music. What did you guys think about Monomania? Did you like it better than some of Bradford Cox's previous work in either Atlas Sound or in Deerhunter? Or did you like it, but not quite as well? Let us know at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and tell all your friends about us, because we're the best kept secret in music reviews, but that doesn't mean we want to be a secret, so you don't have to keep it. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Movie Music Critique Forward.